Do you tend to lose yourself in relationships, romantic or otherwise? Have you lost your voice? Are you afraid to speak up for fear of what the other person will say or do? Have you lost your identity trying to fit into another person's world? This can be because of unhealed wounds and our need for validation. But this can lead to very unhealthy relationship dynamics and codependent tendencies. My name is Angela Cleary and I'm a feminine empowerment coach, and I specialise in healing after narcissistic abuse. So today I want to talk about unhealthy relationship dynamics, but most specifically about losing ourselves to these relationships. We tend to get into relationships so quickly and for the wrong reasons. We go in with a sense of desperation, this need to be loved, this need to be protected, this fear of being alone. This can lead to us completely losing ourselves to that other person. It doesn't actually have to be romantic relationships, but I'm going to start there. But we can actually lose ourselves to friendships, work relationships, but even family members. And I'll explain how we can become so codependent on our family members, especially after breakups of any kind. So, certain things can happen. If you come out of a relationship and go straight into the next one, you're going into this from a very needy, a very vulnerable place. So you can go in with the wrong intentions and end up doing the wrong things. And this can happen then if you break up from a relationship and end up, say, moving home or spending too much time with a parent or a friend. You can actually become codependent on them and losing yourself to them as well. But I'll start with romantic relationships. Because of our own unhealed core wounds, our unhealed inner child, we seek for love and validation outside of ourselves. We get this need. We feel like we need to be in a relationship. Like, this is another thing. Like, society tells us that we need to do life this way. We have to get married. You have to have kids before you're 30, or you're doing it all wrong. So that's a seed that's planted within us anyway. But then, because of unhealed and unmet core wounds that we have from childhood and a wounded inner child, we have this desperation for love. We seek for this love outside of ourselves. We seek for external validation. And this can prevent us from seeing the red flags when we get into certain relationships. This can lead us to people please. This can lead us to lose who we are and lose our identity, because we're so vulnerable. And especially if you get into a relationship on the rebound, and I've done this as well, Jesus, you have to give yourself time to heal. But when you go into a relationship from a vulnerable state, you're more likely to lose yourself a lot more quickly than you would if you were in a healed state. We go in and we latch on too quickly. It's unhealthy attachment. And I've had these dynamics in the past, like unhealthy attachment, and you get feelings straight away. But these feelings, there's a difference. There's a difference with real feelings, and there's a difference with unhealthy attachment. Unhealthy attachment comes from desperation. It comes from our need to be loved, our need to be validated, our need to be protected, our fear of being alone. And when we get into the wrong relationships, we seek out any kind of relationship. And this is why I just think online dating is so superficial, and we shouldn't, it's unhealthy. It leads to more heartache, I think, because you're latching on to anyone that says hello. And this is the thing. I watched this movie, How to Be Single, and they mentioned the word dick sand. It's when you get sucked in and into a guy's world because he calls you beautiful, calls you babe, and you're like, oh my God, he likes me, and then we get into this mushy state and we lose all sense of the real world. And that's it. We lose contact with friends. We lose contact with family members. And sometimes this can be because we get into narcissistic or toxic relationships. But when a relationship is imbalanced, we can lose our identity and lose ourselves to these relationships. And that's the thing. We will try so much to fit into their world because we're so afraid they're going to leave. And this can happen early on as well. It's okay, if I pretend I like the things that they like me. And if the simple thing of you saying you like something and then they say, oh geez, I don't like that. And you're like, okay, I don't either. And then you mold yourself into their world. and you start to people please and fit yourself into their world for fear of being alone or fear of them leaving you. And that person mightn't even be the right person for you. You know what I mean? They might have said one nice thing to you and it could actually be a toxic narcissist. And you're just like, oh my God, I need to be loved, I need to be loved, I need to be loved. And you kind of just try so much to fit into their world and you do everything on their terms. This is how we lose ourselves. We try to be what they want us to be. Getting into a healthy relationship, you should be yourself 100%. They should be themselves 100% as well. And you should accept each other and help each other grow into the best versions of yourselves. Not try to dampen down your shine. And that's what happens. Like, we tend to, and we were afraid to even speak up. Like, we're afraid to use our voice. We're afraid to say anything in case the person leaves. And this can happen so early on in a relationship that we actually completely lose who we are. Like, I was in a narcissistic relationship for over 8 years and I didn't even realize this dynamic till after we broke up. And I said something in front of him after we broke up and to one of my friends, and he's like, Jesus, you haven't said anything like that in years. And I just sat there and it took me a while to understand it. And I was like, oh my God, that's because I haven't been here for years. I haven't said, like, I'm so quirky. Like, I will say stuff before I even know I'm going to say it. I just say random things. It's just who I am. And I love that part of myself. But because he made me shut up, like, he quietened my voice. He made me feel like I couldn't have an opinion. Anytime I spoke, he would interrupt me or tell me my opinion didn't matter. And I just stopped talking. And with a couple of exes, actually, my weird side that would say these random things, they used to say, Jesus, you can't say that. Don't say that. Jesus, that's fucking embarrassing. You can't do that. So I'd stop being me. And there was other things, like I used to watch cartoons. I used to have likes. I used to have stuff that I enjoyed doing. But because my exes would say, no, that's stupid, or I don't like that, you'd be like, okay, neither do I. Fine, I maybe I didn't like it in the first place. And you end up suppressing the truest parts of yourself for fear of them leaving you. And they're toxic. Usually, more than likely, when there is an imbalance in a relationship, that person that you're codepending on is toxic. And if they're not toxic, there shouldn't be an imbalance in relationships. That's what I'm trying to say. There shouldn't be one person superior to the other. So, in codependent relationships, it means that one person's needs are being met over the other. And the person who tends to be codependent is the one, doing everything for the other person and then losing every sense of who they are. And in a healthy relationship dynamic, things are equal. They're accepting. You don't dampen your other person's shine because you want them to shine. And, we end up losing every sense of our identity just to fit into somebody else's box, just because we're afraid of being alone and we're afraid to address the red flags. And this happens still for me. Like, you know what I mean? I've been single for 6 years and I've tried letting people in the odd time. And I'm starting to become aware of the red flags. But even the last time, like a couple of months ago, I let somebody in and I was seeing, like, it was going well. And then I started to see a couple of red flags. And I was like, no, look, no, it's grand. I'm going to be laid back. I'm going to be relaxed. I'm not going to, it's early days. I'm just going to, take my time with this. And I thought I wasn't being pushy. That's the way I was. I was like, I'm being relaxed about it. He's just busy or whatever. When, contact kind of started to go down a little bit. And I was just going with the flow. But I could see these red flags and I was like, I was talking myself out of it. And then I got to a stage where I was like, this is more than a red flag now, I'm going to have to say something. And I was afraid to say something. Why was I afraid to say something? Because I was afraid he would leave. And then I was like, no, hold on a second. This is early days. I barely know this guy. Who gives a shit? If I say something about how I'm feeling, if I use my voice and he's the right person, he's not going to leave. And that's what I did. And like then when I did say what I needed to say, I realized afterwards I was people pleasing. I wasn't being laid back. I was actually people pleasing and I was letting him control the dynamic. And I was like, hold on now, this is a complete opposite to what I want going into a relationship. this is a major red flag. Things should be equal. And me thinking I wasn't being pushy was actually me being fucking a pushover. And that's what it was. And I was so afraid to use my voice. What? For fear of being alone. Like, I've been alone for 6 years and I'm very happy to be alone. And I am very careful now if I do allow somebody in, because I do see the red flags early. And that's the thing, like, and I actually kind of saw red flags a little bit earlier than when I spoke up. But I was still afraid to speak up. This is a way of losing myself. And that's the thing, we don't even see it. We don't even acknowledge it. All we kind of do is we want to please that other person. We want them to like us. We want them to think to accept us. So we hide certain parts of ourselves, and with this guy as well, I just put my crazy out on the table. I was like, look, I'm putting my crazy out on the table now. If you don't accept my crazy, I'm not going to hide my crazy and suppress that part of myself. I'm going to show you my crazy, and if you like it, great. If you don't, then bye. And that's the way I've decided to go into anything in the future. Is, look, take me as I am, or don't take me at all. And the way I see it is, if it's your person, if it's the right person, they're going to accept every little bit of you. So don't be afraid to use your voice. Don't be afraid to be who you are. Don't get into relationships from a place of desperation or neediness. And that's the thing. We don't give ourselves enough time between relationships to heal. And that can be a massive problem as well. We get into a relationship from a vulnerable state. And then, like, the guy could be a walking red flag. And you're like, oh, he's lovely. He said I was pretty. And that's the thing, the dick sound. That is the dick sound. The day I actually spoke up to the last guy, he sent a text message and said something nice. And I was like, oh, maybe I won't say it and he's lovely. Cop on, Angela, fuck's sake. You get me? So I was so susceptible to getting sucked into his dick sand just because he said something nice. They say the nice things to keep you interested, but to give you breadcrumbs, and you're like, oh, he said I was pretty. This kind of bullshit. So we have to really start healing ourselves before we get into these relationships, because we are going to be wearing these rose-tinted glasses. We're going to not see the red flags, and we're going to turn into complete pushovers and go back to our codependent behaviors. Give yourself time to heal between relationships, or you will end up attracting toxicity and you will end up becoming codependent. And this can come now, for example, as well. This happened to me with my dad. I became codependent on him and I lost my identity to him. So, like, I had to walk away from a brilliant group of friends back in 2021, and I actually attracted another narcissistic boss along my healing journey. And I went back into a vulnerable state. I was feeling all my codependency coming back up. I was feeling all my vulnerability come back up, and I was feeling needy. So I started spending more time with my dad, and I'd already set boundaries with my dad because he was a bit of an energy vampire and he has very negative energy. But I forgot this. And I remember actually back when I was back in that vulnerable state, I started to go visit him once a month instead of less often, say. And I'd spend 2 or 3 days there, which was the wrong decision for me. And I remember even saying, oh, his energy doesn't affect me anymore. I can go up more often. Big mistake. And because of my vulnerability from losing my friends, I ended up becoming needy and codependent on my dad. So for 1.5 years, I slowly but surely lost my voice again. I lost my identity again by pleasing him, by trying to fix his life. I ended up, my life force energy completely depleting. My mental and my physical health deteriorated. And I lost all sense of myself. And I'll describe it. When you lose yourself in a relationship of any kind, the way I felt after spending 1.5 years with my dad more often was how I felt after an 8-year toxic relationship. I was losing completely who I was. But what broke my heart about this time was because I was already on my healing journey. Back when I was in a narcissistic relationship, I wasn't aware of healing. I wasn't aware of codependency. I wasn't aware of narcissism. I wasn't aware of the fact that I was losing myself. So it was only when I came back after the relationship that I realized that I had lost myself, and then I started doing research on narcissism and all that, and I discovered the truth. But when I let myself go to become codependent on my dad, I actually literally I was standing there watching myself deteriorate. All I knew was that I started to feel the same way as I did after the 8-year toxic relationship, but I didn't know why. And like literally I saw my soul, myself, it was inside me in this glass box, and she was banging on the glass, voiceless, screaming at me. I couldn't hear her, I could just see her. She was crying at me to listen, to save her, to bring her back. I had lost myself so completely. I lost my voice again so completely. I was living in a state of fear, a fear-based entity attached to me because of this. My health was gone to shit. I lost my voice. I lost who I was. I lost my identity. And the only way I could get that back was to walk away from my dad and to actually start intense inner child healing again. But this is the thing, when we're in a vulnerable state, and this happens like if we break up from relationships or, lose a job or, even lose friends, we can become unhealthily attached to our parents again because we may move back home or we may spend more time with them, or even friendships or unhealthy toxic relationships because of this need to be loved. Our inner child will be re-wounded after any kind of relationship breakdown or any kind of job breakdown. And this makes us more susceptible to toxic energy stealing our life force. This makes us more susceptible to being codependent, to losing who we are, to trying to fit into somebody else's world in order to feel loved. And this is scary. And this is why, as I said, I stayed single for so long. My biggest fear about getting into a relationship again is to lose myself again. That's the biggest one. And I'm strong now, and I don't seek outside myself for external validation. I love myself now, and I'm continuously nurturing my inner child so that I don't need to be in a relationship. But even the last time I finally said, okay, I'm open to letting somebody in, I nearly did lose myself, and I let him dictate the narrative, and I was people pleasing. I thought, I'm being easygoing here, but I wasn't. I was losing my voice again because I didn't want to speak up because I was afraid. And that's the thing. We're afraid to say anything in case they will not like us, and that's the thing. I was letting things be breadcrumby, and I was seeing the red flags, and I was like, no, I'm just being easygoing. He's busy. Fuck's sake, and I reprimanded myself for that, and I shouldn't be hard on myself. These things happen, but it's so easy for us to fall into that dick sand again just because he tells us we're pretty, just because he calls us babe. It's like, oh my god, he likes me. This kind of thing. So we have to be so careful when it comes to these things. We have to be aware of these kind of patterns. We have to let ourselves heal enough to attract the right relationships. But that's the thing with me, like I was healed enough to see the red flags early on. But because of my hope, I suppose, that everything would work out, and because we did seem so compatible, I let myself people please again. I let myself lose my voice again, technically, and just, and I know it was only early and stuff, but the way I saw it is that relationships should be equal. And to let somebody control the narrative and breadcrumb you, that's not healthy. That's an unhealthy dynamic. When you're in the right circumstance, things should be equal, and you should be able to say whatever you want to say, and that person will respect what you say and what you do. So understand that. Don't be getting into relationships straight after one after the other. Give yourself time to heal. Be mindful as well of, getting codependent on family members as well. Or becoming, people pleasing with family members. That's the thing with my dad. It was like helping him was a way of validating myself in a sense. I was like, if I fix his life, I'll feel better. So if I do everything every day for him, then I'll be accepted. I'll be wanted. Somebody will need me. And that's where codependency comes from. When we're feeling vulnerable or when we're feeling heartbroken from a previous relationship, we kind of put everything into something else as a way of getting the validation we didn't get before. And that's the thing, like we were so heartbroken that we lost ourselves to previous relationships that we end up inadvertently getting codependent on a family member and losing ourselves to that, thinking, if I just spend time with my family member, I can't lose myself to another person again. When in actual fact, you're losing yourself to that family member. So you have to be aware of that as well. Like, if you've got a fear of losing yourself in relationships and, you can easily become codependent and lose yourself to a parent or a friend as well. So understand this part as well. Understand how you're feeling. Understand, are you losing your voice? Are you afraid to speak up? Are you walking on eggshells? Have you lost parts of yourself and your identity to try and fit into this other person's box? Are you, that's the thing, if you're afraid to speak up, this is a codependent, people-pleasing tendency. If you're afraid to use your voice, if you're afraid to say you like certain things because you're afraid that person is going to judge you, that's not healthy. No matter whether it's a romantic relationship or otherwise, if you can't be your true authentic self around this person, there's something wrong. And that's the thing, with my dad, I lost my voice because he kept telling me to shut up, don't be making noise, I'm listening to television. And I eventually just stopped talking again. And I ended up living in this fear. I took on all his negative energy. I took on all his fear-based energy, and I started living my life in a constant bubble of fear because I'd taken on all of his energy and I'd lost all my own energy trying to please him. So you have to be careful. You have to be mindful of this. Are you losing your identity to another person, romantic or otherwise? Are you losing your voice? Are you afraid to speak up? Are you walking on eggshells? Are you losing parts of who you truly are by trying to fit into this person's world to try and please that other person? Because if you are, this is a massive red flag. You need to get out and you need to start finding yourself again. Give yourself that time to heal before you actually go into another relationship or allow yourself to be sucked into any kind of friendship or family relationship that is unhealthy for who you are. You know what I mean? We have to be authentic. We have to be our true selves. And if you're not able to be your true self within a relationship of any kind, then there is something wrong here. That's an unhealthy dynamic. You need to be able to use your voice and express who you truly are for a relationship to be equal. And don't be afraid of that. The right person will stay. And if they don't like you're crazy or if they don't like you expressing your truth, that's not your problem. That's not the right person. If they don't have the respect to understand where you're coming from, that's perfectly okay. We're so afraid to use our voice in case the person will leave. If it's the right person, they're not going to leave. But we should feel so secure within ourselves that it doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? I did the right thing when I spoke up. I got the answer I needed. And that's the thing, I was right. I was losing myself. I was people pleasing. I was trying to fit into somebody else's world because I was afraid again. And I'm happy on my own, and I'm happier now because I saw the red flags early on. But that's what we have to be careful of. We will always put on these rose-tinted glasses. We were going to be slapped in the face with red flags, and we're just going to do the people pleasing because we're afraid to be alone. So we have to start asking ourselves, are you actually in a healthy place to attract in relationships or be around certain people? Because we need to start healing our core wounds, healing what's inside us, so that we actually don't seek outside ourselves for external validation. And if we, we're not afraid then to use our voice, because we're not afraid if that person leaves, because, we know if they leave, it's because they're not our person, or they're not ready, or whatever. That's the thing, that they're just not for us at this time. They're not in alignment with who we are. So we shouldn't be afraid if somebody leaves, because we should be so happy on our own that it doesn't matter whether they stay or go. But we shouldn't let ourselves fall for these red flags and lose ourselves to these unhealthy relationship dynamics. We have to start using our voice, maintaining our identity, and not changing who we are just to fit into somebody else's world. So thank you so much for listening today, and I hope this resonates. If it does, please like and share, and please subscribe to my channel so I can reach as many people as possible. And if you'd like help on your journey, please book me for a discovery call today, and I would love nothing more than to help you on your path. Thanks again. Bye-bye.